Hi, I'm Professor Green. This is Chapter 8, Section 2 in Leadership. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And so I like this chapter because I think it really allows us to look a little bit closely at our own leadership styles. So here in Section 2, we talk about being a more effective leader, what that means, identifying the different types of leadership styles, describing how those styles are associated with leader effectiveness. So how can you personally become a more effective leader and know how to match leader style to the situation to be more effective, right? Because I think that's, again, a key learning from this course is that everything is dependent on the situation and situations change. Let me go ahead and do slideshow mode. So what makes leaders successful? We tried to understand their success. So consider traits, physical features, right? Skills and behaviors. We've spoken about that a lot already in this course. And then the different styles for influence and to motivate others. And so when we go to the next slide, we start to look at some of these traits. Right. Some people say, like, my manager's really nice, my supervisor's very talkative, etc. All different managers have different traits or characteristics of the person in charge. This is a trait approach, understanding leadership. It focuses on the personality, needs, motives, values, etc. But this assumes that if we can identify particular and socially desirable traits, we can then select individuals for leadership positions based on their natural tendencies. So, right, is that possible to say, okay, anybody who is really nice can be a good leader. Anybody who's tall can be a really good leader, right? And so, well, first we need to break it into relations-oriented behavior and task-oriented behavior. So this is the, social, emotional, and interpersonal aspects of management, which, as we've all agreed, hopefully, and this is a big piece of management, right? We want to have a manager who's interested in group harmony, personal support to the individual, kindness, etc. So, right, those are the best managers and the people that we want to work with. Task-oriented behavior is also important, right? Because this is how we get things done, initiating structure, focusing on productivity and leadership. So, right, there has to be a balance here of these two things. And, right, I have some notes here, right? Extroverts, they get to know everybody quickly, but being conscientious actually helps to get the tasks done, right? So there are certain traits that can be helpful, but we also want to make sure that we balance that with the other types of traits that might be opposite of one trait. And as I said here, it might, being a relations-oriented behavior can be helpful versus a task-oriented behavior. But again, the manager might switch behaviors depending on the situation and depending on the change in situation. So a balance is what we're looking for. So how do we act as leaders? So there are many different ways to describe leaders. So we're going to review some of the most commonly known leadership styles. And I feel like this is kind of, a synopsis of the last decade from Barnes and Nobles. So a lot of hot topics that have shown up, which I'm kind of excited to show up now here in our textbook. Transformational leadership, this is a big one. There are lots of books written about this. So how do we transform followers by moving them beyond their self-interest? So how do we get them to contribute to the organization? We articulate high performance expectations, encourage commitment, and we motivate people. They're contrasted with people who are transactional in their approach, more of like the give and the take exchange that happens between leaders and followers. And so, on the next slide, there's going to be a graph that kind of outlines those two, and you'll see that transactional leaders here, these are more passive. The leader clarifies what the follower needs to be done, and that's to be rewarded for the effort. The leader monitors the performance and takes correction when needed, etc. But in transformational, which is, some people have said this is, where we want to be, the influence really increases the degree of the followers' identification with the leaders. So, right, it's more of a relationship. They communicate high expectations, they use symbols and express important purposes in simple ways. So they're much more engaged in the day-to-day work of the follower, influencing followers to look for creative solutions rather than leader waiting for problems to arise before taking corrective action. And then the last one here, providing everyone personal attention and coaching and advising versus laissez-faire. The leader avoids taking any action until absolutely needed. And so as we can see, right, hopefully most of your managers have been on this side. Charismatic leadership, right? So allowing people to influence others. Tony Robbins comes to mind. I used to work for a very popular yoga and mindfulness instructor, Max Strong. He was very charismatic for sure. He just had a large following. And when I was in graduate school, I became his business manager, and it was really interesting to see people. He's in his early 70s now, and all these women, mostly women, kind of just follow him around the world. And he had some insightful things to say, but he was just very, a nice person, very much of a nice person to be around. So personal magnetism, charm, invokes enthusiasm, commitment. But it's also a relational process, acting together, right? That the leader is a spark. And then there are followers who are open and susceptible to this charismatic appeal. It's usually women looking for, who are married, a couple of years or decades and looking for something else in their life after children. And then the oxygen and an environment that's conducive to change, usually a yoga class or a workshop. Something that we can all relate to is probably Martin Luther King in this example, right? Martin Luther King was the spark. The flammable material was these people, the people, mostly like the blacks who started it, right? But then the whites, a lot of white people joined, So, my notes here say, followers looking for change. And then the oxygen was that at the time of Martin Luther King, there was a time of great unrest, right? People were really starting to protest the rights of the Blacks in the South. We have servant leadership. I find that this one is really popular with people my age, people in their 40s, that, we come to a time in our life where we feel like we've accomplished so much. And now we're feeling like, what is our purpose? Well, we're here to serve, they say. So, to create a positive impact on employees as well as business results. So they use power not for self-interest, but for the growth of the employees, survival of the organization, and a positive impact on the community. Robert Greenleaf was the founder of this idea where the servant leader is servant first. So again, I think of this as, the leader is here to serve their employees. And there's a chart here, or traditional management with the leader on top, but servant leadership where he goes on the bottom and he supports the other. He has authority and control shared with the others, bottom up generation and decision making, engagement with followers, empowerment and autonomy. So I'd say about 10 years ago, a lot of my colleagues were posting on LinkedIn that they were here to serve. Ethical leadership. This shows up a lot in Catholic universities. When I Googled it, Villanova, my alma mater, was at the top of the list. And, and we'll look at a chart at the end comparing all these different leadership styles. But this one is all about, I care about I care about the end results, but I care most about how we get there. This is about being role models of openness, honesty, trustworthiness. Foster ethical climates, right? So making sure that the world knows, or the employees know, that everything that we do within this organization is ethical. Leaders and followers share this responsibility. They also promote follower input and safeguard fair processes. moral awareness and concern, moral values, moral responsibility. So yeah, I'd say that this shows up a lot in Catholic universities. Authentic leadership. This kind of speaks to me a little bit because I feel like I try and be a person, what you see is what you get. Being true to oneself and act with their roles with integrity. Um, and no hidden agendas is the term that I wrote with this one. But it can create, because when you're in a position of authority, leaders sometimes try and reconcile who they are with who they need to be. And when I was in leadership roles, managing teams, I always felt like, you know what, I'm going to tell you what it is or what I'm feeling or how I would handle it. And not obviously that's the best situation for this organization, but this is who I am. And so we engage with others in a transparent and a non-defensive way. And as I said, this one kind of speaks to me, but it's not always the most appropriate. I have to say, some followers don't want the leader to be one of them. Sometimes the followers want to have someone who's the spark, someone who's charismatic, someone who maybe makes it appear like they really know exactly where they're headed, when actually most times leaders do not, right? They're taking a risk or a gamble. So here are the comparisons of the different leadership styles, right? Transformational. You're part of an inspired collective effort to be beacons of light for our clients, be creative, be attentive, be more than you've ever been before. Servant leader. I'm most concerned with my followers and my community. Transactional. When you complete your assignments, you can have the rest of the afternoon off. Okay, ethical. As I said, I'm most concerned about how these outcomes are achieved. Charismatic. We're here to provide magical moments that make a difference in people's lives, right? Very Tony Robbins or Max Strom. And authentic. I prefer to be open and transparent and encourage you to do the same. No hidden agendas. So thank you for joining me for part 2 of chapter 8. I will see you in part 3.